All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for signing up for this class today. Just to give you a quick introduction, my name is Matt McConnell. I teach 7th grade language arts. And what we're going to be talking about today is a program that I use in class with my students quite frequently. It's called NoRedInk. It's really skill-centric grammar instruction, so skill by skill, kind of the building blocks of how we build quality sentences, quality paragraphs, and quality writing. So I like to use it with my 7th grade students just to kind of in a way that's twofold. I like to use it as remedial work for students that maybe have gaps in their knowledge, gaps in their understanding. I assign it to them with the hope that they can come to a better understanding of what we're doing, but also to push the kids that get it already to higher levels and newer understanding. So, as I said, this is NoRedInk. If you'd like to follow along, you're welcome to log in and follow along. If not, feel free to use the screen. So, as it says on the screen, NoRedInk is grammar instruction and practice that targets specific skills. Okay, this quote here is directly off of NoRedInk's website. They've got a whole page just dedicated to teacher testimonials, praise from teachers who have used this program, seen its results, and experienced great success. So the first quote says, now supported by a team of expert teachers, engineers, and language experts, NoRedInk's mission statement is to help all students harness the power of language. So that was included just so you have an idea of the credibility of NoRedInk. They do a really good job of making sure that their content is accurate and reliable and that your students are getting practice on things that matter, things that they will use, and making sure that it's taught in a way that is in line with what's accurate. So we've got a testimonial here from a 12th grade teacher, and part of the reason I included that is so that you can see that you're going to get benefit from elementary to middle school to high school because of the way NoRedInk can be adjusted to meet the needs of your individual students. So this gentleman said, it is a powerful, simple, brilliant way to quiz students on specific grammar skills. My students were incredibly receptive. NoRedInk gave them hints, and I saw significant growth, and that is in line with my experience as well. Some of the features that I really appreciate about NoRedInk, number one, first and foremost, we're teachers, public educators, so anything that we can get that's a quality resource that we can use for free, that's a bonus for us, absolutely. And NoRedInk is free to use. You do not need to pay any money out of pocket to get the features that I appreciate and that my students use on a consistent basis. Secondly, NoRedInk is customizable. From the student's end, they can customize the content, which really builds their interest, but sometimes it almost frustrates me how excited they get using NoRedInk, because the first time that they log in, they're going to be asked to select a number of different topics that they find interesting. So to give you some examples, cartoons like SpongeBob SquarePants is an option. You can pick from book characters like The Hunger Games. You can pick from popular TV shows, movies. There's even a section full of presidents and other political figures. So the way that works to customize the content on NoRedInk, it doesn't really change the sentences other than it includes the subjects from those movies, from those books, from those TV shows in the sentences. So to give you an example, if we're working with nouns, common nouns versus proper nouns, it might give you a sentence that says, SpongeBob SquarePants is a teacher, and it might ask you to find the common noun or the proper noun. And so the students will have a sentence that matches with their interests, and I found that this really helps them stay excited and engaged because it's stuff that they're interested in. Another way that it's customizable within the sentences that they give you is it will use the student's own name because if they sign up with Google, Google knows who they are. And so I've seen students really you can just see their mind explode when the sentence is about them. And Mr. McConnell, why is this sentence about me? Why am I in this sentence? So that really gives them just another level of interest and intrigue, and it doesn't really change the content. There's a toolbar for navigation, and that's on the student's end. They've got a toolbar for navigation. There's also a toolbar for navigation for the teachers, and that's something that I use frequently, obviously, to create assignments to navigate while students are working and to explore upcoming possibilities. Additionally, there are different types of assignments, quizzes, and activities on Newsela, and that's one of the features that I think I underutilize, and I think part of that is because we're human, we go with what we're familiar with and what works. And I've seen great success with the way I use NoRedInk, but the producers of NoRedInk continue to evolve and expand their repertoire and the things that they offer. And so that's something that's really grown. I've been using this program, I think, for about 5 years now. And that's something that I've seen grow exponentially in terms of what you can do and what you can offer. So my default is I like to create assignments for students and use those assignments to help them practice. And then once I see that they have mastered a skill, or the majority of the students are understanding it, I will then assign a quiz where I ask them to complete this activity, and I'm going to take that quiz for a grade. But there are other activities. We'll talk more about the question content and the style, but there are other activities. There may be greater depth of knowledge, higher level thinking types of activities, in addition to just the quiz and the assignments where students are simply clicking on answers. And lastly, one of the best features for a teacher is the data reports. Obviously, we need data to help drive our instruction, to help us make instructional decisions, to communicate with parents how students are doing, what kind of progress they're making, and it helps you monitor their progress. So those are some of the features of the data reports that are really beneficial. I like how it breaks it down for you and gives you some feedback. So I'll show you in a slide or two. I'll show you what a data report looks like and give you some more information on how I use that. So I'm going to pause here. I just threw a bunch of the features at you. Do you guys have any questions on that? All right, we'll keep rolling then. So just to give you a visual of what the home page and the toolbar looks like, I obviously took a screenshot here, and this is just the top half of the page. The bottom half would fill up as you include more content, but for right now, we're at the beginning of the school year still, so I don't have a ton of content on here yet. So some of the things that I like to use personally, the dashboard just takes you to kind of the main frame, main page. I use the assignments tab frequently. Like I said, that's one of the main ways that I assign things to students. And so I can click on assignments, and I can go in and I can see a chronological ordered list of the assignments that I've given them. It obviously pops up with other links as well in terms of like the data reports and things like that. If you click on student data, that's a collective of all of their assignments. It takes you through by standard, by skill, and it walks you through how they're doing on each individual task. And then the curriculum gives you just a broader sense of all the things that are offered on Newsela, all the things that are available. So that's the home page for you. If you were to click on student data, this is what I was alluding to. So some things you might notice, you can name your classes. So personally, I like to keep all of my 7th grade students together. If I have 8th grade students, I'll make a separate class for them. So I just titled it McConnell ELA. But what you can do is you can name each individual class. You can assign assignments individually if you choose. You can adjust the assignment types, tests, quizzes, homework, things like that. You can adjust the date range if you want to shrink it down to just how they've been doing during a certain grading period, or maybe during a semester, just to get a better idea of how they've made progress in a specific amount of time. You can download the data in case you need to take it to a meeting, show it to administration, whatever you might need to do with it. You can download it, you can print it, and you can adjust the settings. So what we see here, this is kind of the meat of where we're at. You can see that there are 86 scores that have been accounted for. And the gray box here, it says student names. I just grayed out all the students' names just for privacy's sake. So each row of data here is attached to a single student. And then across the top here, you can see individual assignments. There's 1 quiz and 3 practice assignments that are being accounted for here. And so you can see their progress. You can see that the first student at the top here, 100% across the board. They've been very successful completing all of those assignments. Second student, very similar. They have 1 quiz that they got a 90% on. The third student down is one that you can see they did not even attempt or were not able to answer anything correctly on one of the practice assessments. They've gotten a 60, they've gotten a 70, and they've gotten 100%. And so that's a student that you could say, I need to pay more attention to this student. They maybe need a little bit more support. And so I really appreciate the data that is generated from this program. Continuing on with the features, this is the page that you would see if you click on assignments and you start trying to make a new assignment. So you can see the topics over here on the side of the screen here. You can choose different topics, different skills. Right here in the middle of the screen is the type of assignment. So I like to select practice primarily. That's the one that I get the most use out of, the most mileage of in my classroom. And then the second most frequently used would be the quizzes. Obviously, there are other options here. Those are the ones that I would recommend. And there's also at the top here a menu of different things that you could choose from. So right now it's set on grammar and conventions. That's where I use it most frequently. I do it a lot with my parts of speech unit and a few other things like that. But there's also a new tab recently added, I think possibly new this school year, is writing. They've really expanded that over the last few years. And so now students can see like an example sentence, and they have the ability to go in and change how that sentence is structured. And then lastly, grades and standards over there on the right. You can see the different grade levels and their standards. Over here, I just zoomed in case you couldn't see. These are some of the different skill sets that you could assess students on. And I'll be honest, this is nowhere near an exhaustive list. This is just a small sample. If you click on any of these blue arrows, it gives you a drop down of the specifics. So for example, I just gave an assignment on adjectives and adverbs as part of my parts of speech unit. So if you click on that, there were, I think, 3 different options available. Things like what word is the adjective modifying, or just simply identifying the adjective, and same thing with adverbs. Identifying adverbs, commonly confused adverbs, and then what word is the adverb modifying. So those are some of the different skills that you could use NoRedInk to assess your students with. Some of the strengths, I really appreciate that it's a mastery-based with increasing levels of difficulty. So the way that works, the program asks students questions, similar questions on a similar level of difficulty. If they demonstrate, we've got it, we get 3 in a row right, it bumps up the difficulty. It keeps increasing the difficulty until they demonstrate mastery of that skill, and then moves them up to the next level. And eventually, what happens is if they get it wrong, it'll move them back down. It also gives them examples so that if they're getting it wrong, they know why they got it wrong, and they can look at some examples or do some extra practice to make sure that they're understanding those skills. So it's mastery-based with increasing levels of difficulty. And so I like it because when students are done, they've mastered it. When students are done, they feel like they've mastered it because they've been able to successfully answer questions correctly. Secondly, the program will give you teacher alerts. So on my teacher screen, I can see a drop down of all the students who are working on a particular assignment, and I can see it shows up as a pink exclamation mark that, hey, this student is stuck. And that's a student that maybe I need to go check in with them and make sure that they understand why they're getting these wrong, and help them do a few. And what I found is usually if a student gets stuck, if I go over and say, hey, let's look at a few together. I'll say, okay, you pick the answers. I'll confirm yes or no, and if it's right, you click it, you get it right, you keep moving on. I found that works really well to get them going again, and they rarely get stuck a second time on that same skill. They have formative and summative assessments. That's kind of what I was talking about with the practice assignments. You can assign them practice assignments, and that's where it's kind of low stakes. You keep working on it until you get it right. And then the summative assessments would be more like the quizzes that I talked about. With the quizzes, they don't have the ability to go back and just keep doing it until they get it right. It's a set number of questions. I usually set it for 20 questions, and they answer 20 questions and get a score based on their performance with those specific questions. I also kind of alluded to this already, the remediation and review instruction is a great way to fill in gaps or support students who maybe just don't quite understand the topic that you've taught about in class. And then lastly, we talked about the data reports on a previous slide. Those are invaluable to supporting, yes, the student gets it, or no, the student does not quite understand what they're talking about. And so just to support this idea that it's data-driven, a couple quotes for you. Certain software allows students to reinforce specific skills in a certain subject area. And obviously that's what NoRedInk does. Secondly, drill and practice activities help learners master materials at their own pace. Drills are usually repetitive and are used as a reinforcement tool. So that's something that I see NoRedInk working specifically with very, very successfully. And there are my references in case you're interested in seeing that. So any questions to wrap up about NoRedInk or how you might use it? All right, thank you very much.